Sasha, I'm so excited to bring you on again. You were with within this podcast season 1, and I wanted to bring you on season 2 because we had such a good conversation in Mexico about polarity and masculinity and femininity, and it's been something that's really been bothering me, wanting to talk about, wanting to disrupt, and you're the perfect person for it.
Mm, I love it. Professional disruptors. Yeah.
So one of the things that you do really well is to break down some of the harmful aspects of the way that polarity, masculinity and femininity specifically, is presented in coaching spaces.
Thank you. That's such an important conversation to have. I was so happy when I received your invitation because this is the topic we should be discussing
Yeah,
more and more often.
yeah,
Otherwise, we are being complicit. I really feel like the coaching industry has become a huge part of the problem when it comes to the systems of oppression.
yeah,
Uh, and I know that that's not where the hearts of most of the people that join this industry are,
yeah, yeah,
but that's what we end up doing when we keep replicating the same ideologies that have oppressed us to start with. And one of these ideologies is the binary model that creates this idea of good versus evil, black and white, uh, women and men, masculine and feminine energies, and the whole idea of polarity.
yeah.
It's deeply, deeply disturbing because it antagonizes people and it creates not only division but invisibility when it comes to what people truly are.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, and part of what sparked my desire to come on here with you, it was our conversation, but also, just this idea of like feminine business, right? Like this idea that like all you need to do is like lean back and stroke your pussy and the money's just going to come in, right?
Mm.
And I just recently saw an ad by a very famous coach, the coach, right? And they were talking about like what's missing in your business, the feminine, right?
Mm.
And I had this eye roll moment of like, can we just fucking myth bust this fucking feminine bullshit? Please, let's do that. Okay.
Yes, 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 yes.
So share your perspective on where we start replicating these harmful systems through our business behaviors, how we promote ourselves, what we talk about, how we talk about it.
Thank you. So, first of all, it starts with the idea that certain behaviors and traits are masculine and other traits are feminine.
Yeah.
And that's the main uh, and most disturbing part of this ideology. The idea that a certain amount of traits are feminine and another are masculine. Usually, the feminine traits are the soft, emotional, gentle, kind, loving, caring traits.
Yes.
And I know that you will say, but I do all of that. I am kind, gentle, loving. Yeah, but that's not all of who you are. You are so much more than that. And then the other part that is the masculine is intellectual, is smart, is driven, is ambitious. It knows what they want. They are the ones that get into the business of learning and understanding. They are the smart ones. And that's as we say in Spanish, ahí es donde tuerce el rabo la puerca. That's that's where things are really messed up because we are replicating the idea that men are intelligent, men are ambitious, men think clearly, they think, and women feel, and they
Mhm.
just flow with it. And then when I have spoken about this with people, they usually defend this idea, but saying, no, no, we're not talking about people. we're talking about energy, but that's still messed up because language is not accidental. The
Yeah.
language that we choose has power.
Yeah.
So they are not talking about yin and yang or about flow and drive. They are talking about feminine and masculine, and that's not by accident. And there are so many things that are coming as a derivative of that they come just after that. The fact that we have angry dudes yelling at their microphones, speaking about how to be an alpha male and how women should be subordinated. It's a consequence of this kind of belief that
Yeah.
females for starters, as if it was the right term,
Yeah.
like females are to be subordinated, to be obedient, to be submissive because we flow, and then guys because they are smart and they are
Yeah.
driven.
Yeah.
That is deeply messed up in many layers. But the main one for me is that we are replicating the idea that if you're a woman, you're stupid and you just feel, and you should leave the thinking to men, and you should leave the direction and the vision and the learning and the intellectual clarity to men, and you just should settle with feeling. So that's one thing, and the other is it erases everybody in between. That's why I was speaking about polarity. Like, we are not just one or the other, we are so many things, we are complex beings. And if we are deleting the whole in between, the whole moments in which we are not female or masculine, but so much more, we are deleting huge amounts of people
Yeah.
who don't identify with any of these terms.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even those of us that are cis women like me, I don't identify with all the things that I'm told that I should be as a woman. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not any of that.
Sasha, I don't even identify necessarily like with being a woman. Like I am
Precisely.
like I have a pussy, I have a vagina, and all of like anatomically very much a woman. But I don't identify when I see like, oh, this space is just for women. It's not necessarily like I don't necessarily just want to get in there. Like as a gender fluid person internally, I don't necessarily present like that on the outside, but in my intimate partnerships, there's a lot more fluidity. And yes, there are moments where I like to, like sexually, for example, like take some dominance and play with dominance, and then play with like, what have I surrendered and let go. And that is all a game of leadership and energy and following and attunement, very connected. And it is also temporary. It is also sort of like a moment, right? And people get to sort of play in those spaces. People in relationship coaching, for example, I've seen people retract some of the original statements they've made about polarity, because they've realized that they not only like harm women in what they were teaching, but it also really like um limits, right? When somebody has to be in their supposed masculine or omega, right? Or alpha, I don't know, I don't know which one it is, but when they have to be in one or the other, it really traps someone, regardless of whether they identify as more alpha or more omega or whatever. It traps people when we can't be both. The idea that I feel very connected to is that we all have a balance of both within us. And we need to be in balance. We don't just embody the feminine. We don't just embody the masculine, right? And even calling it that just irritates me, like using those terms.
Because it's a social construct.
Yeah.
Years ago, when I was hearing feminists, before I consider myself a feminist, I would be so surprised by them calling gender a social construct. Now I understand. Now
Yeah.
I have learned why they call it that way. And the truth is, it is a construct. The ideas of what masculine and feminine should be like are not the truth of what we as humans experience, because it is a construct. Just as I was just reading yesterday a quote by Laurie Penny in her book Unspeakable Things, and she says, gender, it's performance for profit. So at the end of the day, we learn to perform as feminine, and men learn to perform as masculine in order to obtain something from our culture, from our environment.
Yes.
Men learn that they, or people that are born with penises, like people,
Or
again, separating.
assigned male, assigned female. Yeah.
Exactly. People separating gender from sex, right?
Yes.
People who have sex, biological sex as men, learn to behave as men, in quotations, according to what culture tells them that it's okay for them to do, so that they thrive, so that they are safe, so that they are welcome. And it's a never ending rat race for them.
Yeah.
And the same happens to those of us that were born with pussies, that we learn to behave as the traits that were named feminine in order to thrive, in order to be seen, to be welcome. And that is constructed by society, but that's not the nature of who we are.
Yeah.
And bringing that back to business, it's so relevant to see that women that are thriving are called masculine. Oh, she has been thriving. Yeah, I don't know, like politicians, they thrive because they are in their masculine. And then you see this new group, this new pack of women thriving because they are so much in their feminine that they just lay down and drop their pussies. And yeah, that is not feminine. That is not about being in their feminine. That it's about playing the role of what society tells them that should be feminine. It's the flowy dress, it's the smiling, not threatening face, it's trying to please and be a courtesan so that you seduce people into your nets. And at the end of the day, that is the idea of society of what the feminine should be like.
Right. And even when some coaches who talk about the feminine, like the dark feminine, right? Also, right, who talk about the shadowy stuff, right? That is more encompassing. And yet there is something in me that still feels like I don't even want to. It still perpetuates separation and division. It still perpetuates a binary, right? Because even when we talk about structure and flow, I can sort of get into that. And I can also feel the part of me that's like, when you go out in nature, nature is chaos, nature is soft, nature will fuck with you, and nature has a lot of structure. There is a lot of order in the chaos and a lot of chaos in the order. It's not separate.
Yeah.
And we are all that nature. That is all in us.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I feel like there is this need and this desire to discover the wheel and to say, yeah, I discovered the way in which the feminine should work. No, this is the right way. This is the wrong way. This is, and the truth is that it's just marketing. All of that is nothing but marketing. It's finding that term that it's going to be interesting for people, that it's going to resonate to people, but it's just marketing. They are playing with terminology that should be, or that has been actually studied by sociologists, by anthropologists, by social anthropologists, by psychologists. There is a whole area of gender studies and biological studies that prove all of these ideas wrong, that prove that there is no such thing as a feminine way of existing or a masculine way of existing, uh, and we still keep replicating the one word that it's going to attract people, because that's just about marketing. People
Mhm.
want to hear, women want to hear that they can be more feminine and seduce people into their energy field. And men want to feel like super saiyajins. They are like, yeah, I am an alpha male. Ooh. The truth is that it's just marketing, and they are just
Yeah.
falling for the marketing idea of being this super hyper uh, gender model, so
Yeah.
that people can follow them.
And I can understand how that would be attractive, right? If you feel like you haven't, like you've been, I don't know how to say it, but like you've had to be a certain way in your life, right? When you feel like you've had to be a certain way, and then somebody markets at you saying, you know what, you can be a different way, you can relax and let go. That totally makes sense to me. That has value, right? Like that is beautiful permission giving. And I'd like for us to talk, like to really address the deeper issue, right? It's not just about like relaxing into the feminine. It is about like bringing harmony within yourself. Like it is about like uncolonizing the ways that you've learned to be in the world based on your socialization, whether that is, through hypermasculinity or hyperfemininity, right? Or any type of gender socialization.
Not to mention that they are, when we fall into this trap of this gender socialization, it becomes part of the snow, oh like snowball, that it just becomes greater and greater,
Yes,
bigger and
yes.
bigger. So it starts innocently by saying,
Yeah.
well, what I call the feminine, it's just flow, and don't be so tense. And you can say, well, that's innocent enough. I can call it feminine as well. It's about flowing. I can flow. I need to flow. I'm too stressed. Yeah, sure. Let's go
Mhm.
with it. But then the next thing, before you notice, you are starting to talk about submission, because I'm flowing. So flowing means that I let somebody else take the lead, and that means that my nature is to submit. And then you start talking about submission. But it's not just about the bed. Next time you notice, you're talking about financial submission and servitude in your relationship. And then it's something that started being very fun and being about the bedroom and role playing becomes promoting submission as a way of living 24/7. And then before you notice, you are talking about treating the man like if he was the god and savior in your house, and you serving his every need, and you not setting boundaries, because boundaries are masculine. I don't know if you know, but that's the newest trend. You know that boundaries are masculine. Females don't set boundaries because that's not feminine. Because females want to be protected by men. And it's like, just start opening the gates to a whole lot of bullshit. And
Right.
that's the danger. And it
Yeah.
starts innocently. It starts with, yeah, fuck, I want to start stressing less and allowing the flow, and not having to be in control all the time. And it ends up eventually, little by little, becoming a viciously dominant situation in which we are part of the perpetrators of the dominance that we have been trying to get away from.
Mm-hmm.
This culture has thrived over a sense of having somebody on top and having somebody below. And the moment we allow this separation to even exist in our mind, we are creating the perfect ground for the for this for this colonizing mentality of being obedient and subservient, and somebody dominating and being in control.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about it in a kink situation?
I think that kink, it's amazing because just like sex, It's the perfect space where you can role play everything you want in the world. You can be dominant and then submissive, and then you can play and change in the same session, and you can be naturally inclined to be more dominant or more submissive, and it has nothing to do with gender. It has to do with your nature or with your needs.
Yeah.
Sometimes people it's very common to find CEOs finding a dominatrix because they crave to have somebody ruling over them, like just dominating them, telling them what to do so that they don't have to worry about anything when they are in that space. But
It's
that's
like taking a vacation from their usual role.
exactly, it's a playground. It
Yes.
doesn't mean that it has to be the way of living.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think that you're right in that it's a slippery slope. We have to be really careful and thoughtful about how we use these terms because just by like observing, like following people's feeds and noticing how things get talked about, like it can easily flip. Like there's moments where I feel it flipping into this place of like, oh, this is going down that slippery slope, or this still feels okay, but I could see just taking it a little bit over here would make it feel like, right? And I think that because I see the world in a more fluid or non-binary way, I tend to focus more on talking about like the underlying issue, which is like what you are talking about as well: power, humanity, balance, nature, really getting into the foundation and like, yeah, getting underneath some of the terminology, right? And like, okay, so what are we really talking about here, right? Instead of using these global terms, masculine and feminine, and all of these umbrella terms, what are we really talking about? We're talking about the nervous system,
Yeah.
right? We're talking about grounding. We're talking about feeling safe in our bodies, right?
Mm.
Giving ourselves permission to be exactly who we are, who we were meant to be, right?
That is so important because at the end of the day, we are all complex human beings
Yeah.
with the very same needs. We need validation, we need appreciation, we need to be seen, we need to be understood, we need to feel loved, we need to feel like we bring value to whatever
Yeah.
we do in life. That's all that we are. We are not really uh, looking for somebody to control us or to control somebody, or we don't really need to bring business as the center. Um, we don't need to mix business and cisgender roles because that is just perpetuating oppression. So
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it's also a reclamation. I feel like, again, language is not accidental. We can choose a language that allows us to be freer instead of more oppressed.
Yes.
When we are choosing a language that perpetuates oppression, we are not really looking for a business as a way to thrive as a whole, as human beings. We are looking for business as an excuse to perpetuate oppression.
Mhm.
And for me, it makes sense that these businesses are thriving so much because they are not threatening to the status quo, right? Like when you see these businesses specifically um, thriving because they are so much in their feminine and they are so much in their flow, and the truth is that we see women that are thriving because they are non-threatening to the patriarchal status quo. They are charming, they are gentle, they are soft and having fun, and they want to be um, to be concubines, to be these seducers, to be all about giving pleasure to men specifically. They play with this binary, so they are not threatening, and that's why it's easy for them to thrive. They are usually attracting people that are still trying to find themselves in this system,
Mm-hmm.
and that feel like that resonates with them, because it starts like that. It starts like us just wanting to figure our way in this system, to thrive in this system. And we see their example and we think that's available for us.
Mm-hmm.
But then we find that people that are natural disruptors, people that are not part of the system, not because we didn't want to, but because we just didn't fit the system, because we
Yeah.
were not, we were never feeling totally feminine or totally masculine, or we were not young enough or skinny enough, or you know, people that are natural disruptors. We were not wide enough, we didn't fit in that space. And that's what they don't tell you. When they tell you
Mm-hmm.
this is the feminine way of doing things, they are not telling you this is the white, young, skinny way of doing the thing. This is the,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Woo! I,
yeah, the,
yeah.
that's the part that it's deeply messed up.
Yeah.
Then you see many women of color struggling, trying to find their ways into this way of doing things, and just feeling like they will never belong and they will never get to do it,
Yeah.
because nobody told them that if you are if you are going for one division, you're usually going for all of them.
Yeah.
So one division is, of course, gender, female and masculine. The other is race. The other is youth. The other it's sexual
Ableism.
expression,
Yeah. Right.
ableism. So you start just joining, putting all these pieces together that are not only non-threatening to the system, but the system loves it. It just keeps going. Like that's the thing. These brands, these people, this way of doing business comes out as if they were uh, fighting patriarchy and empowering women. But the truth is that they don't. They are actually perpetuating patriarchy, because that's
Mm-hmm.
the patriarchal way of doing things. That's why I love, sorry, that's
No,
why
no,
I
no. Dale, dale.
super passionate
Yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
it. That's
Me
why I
too.
love what Kelly Beals says when she says it's not the feminine and masculine. If we would really want to empower people, we need to divide them between the patriarchal way of doing things, where so many women play along, versus the feminist way of doing things, where we are
Right.
craving for justice, where we are craving for
Thank you.
equality, where we are craving for a really, really powerful change, so that we can actually reclaim who we are, instead of aim to be that character, that cartoon of what the feminine should be like.
Yes, yes. That is so powerful. Like really wanting to repeat what you just said, that femininity does not equal feminism, right? And it's often sort of wrapped together in a package and sold as a an offer together, but it's not necessarily that. It doesn't necessarily go together. It's not synonymous. Yeah. And I want to share something personal that, because I came from a background where I had a lot of internalized machismo and sexism, like I disparaged the quote unquote feminism, femininity, right? Like I didn't grow up girly, although there's a part of me that wanted to embody that. I think there was a part of me that wanted that because I was not that. I was simply not that. And it was like a disappointment to me that I wasn't that I couldn't be wider, cuter, more petite, et cetera, et cetera. And when I came in contact with Mama Gina's work, it was really liberating because I got to embrace some of those aspects of myself that I had been neglecting and missing, and I got to stoke that fire. So it was in a way temporarily liberating for me to get permission, like I said before, to have that part, to own that part. And then when I did, it was like, oh, okay. So now like I got to rest, right? Like, okay, so that's part of me now. And now what do I feel? Well, now I feel like I'm in balance. Like now I feel like complete and whole. And it really, again, coming back to my earlier point, it felt like I had reclaimed a part of myself, but it wasn't necessarily like feminine. It was a permission to like be more in my heart. It was a permission to like, it was about healing. It was about healing some of my intimacy wounds. Like it wasn't necessarily, I wouldn't, I think at the time I assigned it feminine, but it wasn't ultimately what it was.
Yeah, that's so important. I really feel like that. I was just writing about that this week, so it really resonates. Uh, we start the journey looking for these specific traits, looking to
Yes.
claim that which was denied
Yes.
many of us,
Yes.
because at some point the capacity to feel sexy and to feel connected to our pleasure and our sexuality and to just be flirtatious and to just enjoy existing in our bodies
Yes.
was was held apart and kept just for those that were fitting into the model of the the ones that fill the check boxes. Oh,
Yeah.
are you beautiful, blonde, skinny, wealthy, like all the boxes, like
Mhm.
not too curvy, but not too skinny, not too like the whole list check boxes.
Yeah.
And then the rest of us, which is the vast majority, who didn't feel those checkboxes, were left craving to feel connected to our pleasure and our bodies. And we saw that they called that being feminine. And we saw that they called that being sexy and being connected to their
Receptive.
sexuality and being receptive. And the truth is that for me, that was a search as well. I wanted that. That had been denied to me as well. Uh, but in looking for that, I found a piece of myself that I didn't know I had lost. I found that when I connected to my pleasure, it was more about myself than about the others. It was more about loving myself just
Yeah.
the way I was instead of wanting to look different. It
Mhm.
was more about feeling like creating belonging inside of my body, creating
Yes.
belonging in my sphere, so that I didn't feel like I needed to crave my way and belong somewhere else. So
Yes.
that for me, it's like a gateway drug. It just it seems like, yeah, you're going to just go for the feminine pleasure, and you end up embracing the whole aspect of your fierce sexuality. But the thing is, uh, I found there a sense of genderless pleasure that I didn't think I would be even looking for. I found that I was so comfortable in being dominant, fierce, uh, intellectual. I found this craving to learn more, to know more. The things that were neglected, rejected by me because I thought that they were masculine, I could embrace them now.
Mhm.
So I became one of those, and I know that not everybody takes these roles, that took this journey of what started like as female empowerment, and I made it about actually empowering myself in all my complexity. While I know that not many go in that road, many other people stay in the polarity aspect of it. So
Mhm.
it's a dangerous road. It can take you in a
Yeah.
way of self-discovery where you can embrace the whole complexity of your gender, and you can use it as being the whole complexity of your humanity beyond gender, and you can use it for everything, for pleasure and for business and for your personal life, or you can go in the road of polarity and try to use it for everything, for business, for sexuality, and for your personal life.
Yeah.
The entrance seems to be the same at some point,
Yeah.
but then the journey goes in different directions.
Yes. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Yeah, and even promoting my most recent offer, the Harmonize business, mind body soul business incubator. I was using terms like structure and flow because it's something that people understand, and that's how I can talk about my work in ways that people understand. And that's this is sometimes the truth about marketing and sharing our messages, that we use language in a way that people can understand, even though, maybe we don't, that's not the way we experience it within ourselves. And we have to share it in a way that like resonates. And sometimes it's like, it's a hard choice to make. I don't use femininity anymore, but I used to. And I used to use pussy. And then I started experiencing my own gender non-binariness. And it's like, oh, what am I doing? And I just realized like how shitty that was and how exclusive or non-inclusive that was. And so I think, we're all on an evolutionary path, right? We're all uncolonizing ourselves. And we're recognizing how some of these terms, like language is power, and how some of these terms really perpetuate the same idea, sort of recycle them in a slightly different way,
Yeah, totally. Um, I I have to admit that many years ago, I was a fan of these theories of the separation of gender, and I would say stupid things like we should celebrate our differences. And now I'm like, Sasha, what was wrong with you? But also I can tell you through my own experience how that belief system really messed me up. That belief system really affected me a lot, because it really created a very toxic idea of what I was capable of doing. And it put a lot of very toxic expectations of my husband about what he should do as a man.
Yeah.
He went in the same direction. He started exploring sacred masculinity, and we were in that. I was exploring sacred femininity, and he was exploring sacred masculinity. And now that I look at it, I'm like, oof, no wonder we were such a mess,
Mhm.
because I was there waiting for him to take the lead, to be the one in charge, to be this dominant masculine energy that I was reading about from the books of David Data, because the masculine wants to ravish the feminine. And today I look at that and I'm like, of course we were so broke and so angry and so sad, and just in my case, so deeply disempowered, and in his case, the foundation of his power was machismo. So it's really messed up. I saw it firsthand. When I'm here speaking against that way of doing things, it's because I went that road and I know it's really messed up. I'm coming back from it, and
Yeah. Yeah.
really made me feel stupid. It really made me feel incapable of doing things, because when you keep repeating women that when they are thinking they are in their masculine, what you're telling them is you're stupid. You just feel like, don't even try to think because that's masculine. And if you are too much in your masculine, you don't flow with your true nature. So you need to flow with your true nature, and that means being in your feminine. That's the message, and that's messed up.
Yeah.
We're telling women that they are stupid, and that's the same thing that they told us 5,000 years ago. We
Mhm.
are just putting nice glamour, glimmer, and lipstick on it to make it look pretty. But the truth is that it's the same freaking message that we have been listening to for thousands of years.
Mhm.
And it's about time we stop this nonsense. And it's about time we start living life in a way that feels truly aligned to our nature, which is so complex. Our
Yes.
lives changed the day in which I said, you know what, I'm gonna take the lead. I know I have a vision of where I want to get us. So now it's time for you to listen to me. And instead of saying, you're the male, and I will listen, and I will take your lead, I was like, oh, wait. I think I know where to go from here. And things started changing.
Yeah.
So I would have said the Sasha of 15 years ago would have said, oh, that's because I stood in my masculine. But the truth is that I didn't. I just,
You were just making a decision.
I just used my freaking brain.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Nobody said that males are born with a brain and females are born with a heart.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what they are saying. So,
Yeah. I mean, in essence, when you think about it, we are assigning a story to something, right? And a lot of what coaching teaches is decoupling the story with a behavior or an emotion, right? That's part of the trauma healing, is uncoupling. But we're still coupling the story of, oh, it's feminine, right? We give it a term, we give it a story, and then we assign all the behaviors and features and characteristics to it. So that's where the real issue is, I think.
and then, of course, we take away the capacity of feeling
Yeah.
from men. Like
Yes.
I remember thinking at some point when I saw my husband crying for something, oh my God, men do have a heart.
Yeah.
And I laugh at myself for even wondering that. But the truth is that our culture tells us that they don't, that they
Yeah.
should be insensitive and they should be all about being very logical.
Yeah.
And the truth is that we keep replicating a system in which we are removing from women the capacity to think, from men the capacity to feel, and from everybody in between the right to exist. And that is
Yes.
really messed up.
Woo. That's it. That is it. Wow, Sasha, what an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time today to share your medicine. And I wish we were airing this sooner so that people can be part of your cacao ceremony, but hopefully you'll offer that again in the future, and people can take part in like uncolonizing some of the ways that we've learned to use ritual or use, you know, indigenous, right, indigenous customs and medicine, like incorrectly using them in ritual. So hopefully you'll be offering that in the future.
Thank you. Absolutely, absolutely. I always have amazing stuff coming up. So tune into my Instagram. Make sure to catch up with all the things that for me it's my pleasure to bring into the world and to share with everybody. And again, because the same principles apply. Decolonization, it's also about decolonizing our genders and
Yes.
expression, and to exist in a way that goes beyond all of those shackles and models and boxes that we were
Yes.
given.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much.